During football practice on a Tuesday evening, my grandson's coach grabbed him by the face mask and slammed him into the ground. The other parents watching from the bleachers stayed silent. One woman even nodded approvingly. My grandson lay there, helmet askew, struggling to breathe. I stood up, pulled out my phone, and made a call. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're watching from in the comments. I hadn't been to one of Kyle's football practices in over a month. Work had kept me busy, retirement projects, consulting gigs, the usual excuses a grandfather makes when life gets complicated. But Sarah, my daughter, had called that morning with an edge in her voice I recognized from when she was 16 and trying not to cry. "Dad, can you come to practice tonight? Just, can you be there?" "Of course." "Everything okay?" Her pause lasted 3 heartbeats too long. "Just come, please." So I drove to Madison High School in North Austin that evening, arriving just as practice was starting. The Texas heat hung thick even at 6 p.m., the kind of wet heat that makes your shirt stick to your back before you've moved 10 feet. I climbed the bleachers and sat near the back, nodding to a few parents I vaguely recognized from Kyle's games. The team was running drills, 40 kids in pads and helmets, crashing into each other with that particular violence that makes football either thrilling or horrifying depending on your perspective. Kyle was on the offensive line, my grandson, 16 years old, tall for his age but still gangly, not quite grown into his frame. Coach Brad Hutchinson stood at the center of it all, whistle around his neck, clipboard in hand, built like he'd played college ball and never quite left that world behind. 6'2", probably 220, arms crossed, jaw set in perpetual disapproval. I watched him watch Kyle. Even from the bleachers, I could see the focus, the way his eyes tracked my grandson's every move with something that looked less like coaching and more like hunting. Kyle ran the play, crashed into the defensive lineman, held his block for 3 seconds, exactly as designed. The running back got through the hole. Hutchinson's whistle shrieked. Everyone froze. "Mitchell!" The coach's voice carried across the field. "That was garbage. Absolute garbage. You block like my grandmother." Kyle pulled off his helmet. "Coach, I held the block. The play worked. I decide if the play worked. Run it again." They ran it again. Kyle executed perfectly. I'd seen enough football in my 62 years to know a good block when I saw one. The running back gained 8 yards. The whistle shrieked again. "Mitchell, you're playing soft. This is football, not ballet. Hit him like you mean it or get off my field." The woman next to me, mid-40s, expensive athleisure wear, leaned to her friend. "Brad's right. These kids need discipline. My son used to play soft until Coach Hutchinson toughened him up." Her friend nodded. "Best thing that happened to Jake. He's at UT now." I said nothing, just watched, just noted the way every parent in those bleachers accepted this as normal, necessary, part of the game. Practice continued. Kyle ran the play 15 times. Each time, no matter how perfect the execution, Hutchinson found something to criticize. The angle was wrong. The timing was off. The aggression wasn't there. The footwork was sloppy. By the 30th minute, Kyle was exhausted. I could see it in the way his shoulders drooped between plays, how he bent over with hands on knees, sucking air. "Mitchell, water break is when I say, water break. Get back in line. Coach." Kyle's voice was quiet but firm. "I need 30 seconds. What you need is to stop being weak." "I'm not weak. I'm tired. We've been running the same play for half an hour." "Oh, so now you're the coach? Now you decide how practice works?" Kyle opened his mouth to respond. That's when Hutchinson moved. 3 quick steps, closing the distance between them. His hand shot out, grabbed the face mask of Kyle's helmet, and yanked downward, hard. Kyle's head snapped forward. His feet left the ground for just a second. Then Hutchinson shoved, and my grandson hit the turf like a dropped sack of concrete. The sound carried across the field. That distinctive thud of body hitting earth. Silence. Complete silence except for Kyle's gasping attempts to breathe. His helmet had twisted, the chin strap digging into his throat, cutting off air. Hutchinson stood over him. Maybe that'll teach you some respect. From the bleachers, someone laughed. That same woman who'd been nodding before. About time someone put these entitled kids in their place. My vision narrowed. The edges went blurry. All I could see was Kyle on the ground, clawing at his helmet, and that coach standing there with his arms crossed like he'd done something necessary. I stood slowly, descended the bleachers, one step at a time. My phone was already out. Texas is a one-party consent state. I'd relied on that fact dozens of times, over 28 years with the FBI. Old habits. I hit record, positioned the phone on the bench, angled toward the field. Then I made the call. Marcus. It's Tom Brennan. Detective Marcus Walsh's voice carried surprise mixed with concern. Tom? Jesus, how long's it been? 3 years? About that. Listen, I'm at Madison High School football field. I just witnessed an adult assault, a minor. Grabbed the victim by the helmet, threw him to the ground. Victim still down, having trouble breathing. Multiple witnesses present. Walsh's tone shifted immediately, going professional. You're certain it was assault? Not just rough coaching? Marcus, I spent 28 years with violent crimes. I know assault when I see it. I have video evidence. The perpetrator is the head coach, Brad Hutchinson. A pause. Then Tom, is the victim related to you? My grandson. But that doesn't change what happened. Understood. Units are rolling. 3 minutes out. Stay on scene. Keep recording, if safe to do so. Will do. I ended the call, picked up my phone, returned to recording, walked down to field level, 20 feet from where Kyle was finally getting to his knees. Helmet off now, face red, gasping. Hutchinson saw me approaching. You have a problem? My grandson can't breathe. He's fine. Just learned a valuable lesson about respect. Did you grab his helmet and throw him to the ground? I gave him the coaching he needs. Maybe if his parents disciplined him at home, I wouldn't have to do it here. I stopped 10 feet away, looked at Kyle, who was standing now, hands on knees, still struggling for air, looked at Hutchinson, who stood there radiating the absolute certainty of someone who'd never been challenged, never been held accountable. I see, I said quietly. Good. Now get off my field. Practice is closed to spectators who can't handle real coaching. I pulled out my phone, made sure he could see it. Held it up, camera pointed directly at him. Actually, I'm staying right here. His face flushed. You're recording me? Texas is a one-party consent state. I have every legal right to record. Put that away before I take it from you. I wouldn't recommend that. Assault is already on your record tonight. Don't add robbery to it. Assault? His laugh was sharp, disbelieving. I was coaching. Anyone here will tell you that. He turned to the bleachers. Right? Tell this overprotective grandfather that I was just doing my job. Silence. The parents looked at each other, at their phones, at their shoes. Nobody spoke. See? Hutchinson turned back to me. Nobody has a problem except you. That's when the sirens started. Distant at first, then closer. Red and blue lights appeared at the parking lot entrance. 2 patrol cars, moving fast but not reckless, pulling up to the field's edge. Hutchinson's expression shifted. Confusion, then anger, then the first flicker of concern. What did you do? I reported a crime. 4 officers emerged from the vehicles. Marcus Walsh was in the lead. Plain clothes, detective shield on his belt. We'd worked together on a case 5 years ago, back when I was still active, tracking a ring of violent offenders across 3 states. He'd been Austin PD then, still was now. Marcus approached, professional mask in place. Mr. Brennan, Detective Walsh, we received a report of assault on a minor. Can you show me what you witnessed? I pulled up the video on my phone, handed it over. Marcus watched, face neutral but eyes sharp. When it finished, he looked at Kyle, who was now sitting on the bench. Sarah beside him, her hand on his shoulder. Son, are you injured? Kyle touched his throat, already showing red marks from the chin strap. My neck hurts, hard to swallow, and my back where I hit the ground. Marcus nodded, turned to Hutchinson. Sir, I'm Detective Walsh, Austin PD. I need to ask you some questions about the incident that just occurred. There was no incident. I was coaching my team. You grabbed this young man's helmet and threw him to the ground? I gave him corrective discipline. It's part of coaching. Sir, grabbing someone by the head and throwing them to the ground constitutes assault under Texas law, regardless of your role as coach. The victim is a minor, which makes this assault on a child. Hutchinson's face went from red to purple. This is insane. Every coach in America does this. You're going to arrest me for coaching? I'm going to investigate an assault. Now, did you or did you not grab the victim's helmet and force him to the ground? He needed to learn respect. These kids today are soft. Did you grab his helmet and throw him to the ground? Yes, but... Officer Patterson, Marcus gestured to one of the uniforms. Please read Mr. Hutchinson his rights. You can't be serious. Hutchinson's voice rose half an octave. Do you know who I am? I've coached here for 12 years. I've sent kids to college programs. I have relationships with boosters, with the school board, with... Marcus cut him off. Mr. Brad Hutchinson, you're under arrest for assault under Texas Penal Code 22.01. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. The handcuffs came out. Hutchinson jerked away. Patterson, solid and professional, simply stepped closer. Sir, please place your hands behind your back. This is harassment. I'll sue all of you. I have lawyers. I have connections. Patterson cuffed him, and Hutchinson twisted back toward me. This is your fault. You ruined everything. Do you know what you've done? I met his eyes. Yes, I reported a crime. They led him toward the patrol car. At the edge of the field, he was still shouting. My career, my reputation, over one incident, one moment. This is insane. Marcus stayed behind, taking photos of the marks on Kyle's neck, the spot on the field where he'd fallen, documenting the scene with methodical precision. I'd done the same thing hundreds of times. Tom, I'll need statements from you and your grandson. Can you come to the station tomorrow morning? We'll be there. Good. Marcus paused, looked at me with something that wasn't quite a smile. You know, when I got the call and heard your name, I thought maybe retirement wasn't treating you well. But this, he glanced at Hutchinson being loaded into the patrol car. This is exactly what I'd expect from you. Textbook documentation, old habits, good habits. This video makes the case solid. Combined with the physical evidence and witnesses, the DA will have everything needed. Speaking of witnesses, I looked back at the bleachers, where parents were starting to gather their things, avoiding eye contact. How many do you think will actually testify? Doesn't matter. We have video, physical evidence, and your grandson's testimony. But yeah, probably none of them. That's how these things go. Sarah walked over, Kyle beside her. Dad, thank you. I didn't know what to do. Kyle's been telling me about Coach Hutchinson for weeks. But I thought it was just tough coaching. I played sports. I know coaches can be intense. There's intense, I said. And there's assault. Those are different things. Kyle looked at me, really looked at me for the first time that evening. Grandpa, Coach Hutchinson said his lawyer would bury anyone who complained. He said his wife works for the district attorney's office, that they have connections, that nobody could touch him. His wife works in the DA's office? That's what he tells everyone. Brags about it. I pulled out my phone, made another call. This one to Jennifer Chen, who'd been an assistant district attorney when I worked in Austin, before I transferred to the Dallas field office. Last I'd heard, she'd made deputy district attorney. Jennifer, Tom Brennan. Tom, how's retirement? Complicated. Listen, does Brad Hutchinson's wife work in your office? Lisa Hutchinson? Yeah, she's been here about 8 years. Civil division, handles contracts and liability cases. Why? Because I just watched her husband assault my grandson at football practice, and he's been telling kids his wife's connections make him untouchable. A long silence. Then, Tom, are you serious? Completely. He's under arrest right now. Detective Marcus Walsh has him in custody. There's video evidence. Send me everything. If Lisa's been using her position to shield her husband from accountability, that's a serious problem. How bad was the assault? Grabbed my grandson by the helmet, threw him to the ground hard enough to leave marks on his neck and back. Kid couldn't breathe for 30 seconds. Jesus. Okay. I'll make sure this gets assigned to someone who can handle it properly. And Tom, I'll be reviewing Lisa's cases too. If she's been involved in any way with covering up complaints, there will be consequences. Thank you, Jennifer. Don't thank me. You did the work. You always do. That night, Sarah made dinner at my house. Kyle sat at the kitchen table with an ice pack on his neck, picking at his food. He was quiet, processing. "Grandpa," he finally said, "what's going to happen now?" "There'll be an investigation. You'll give a statement. There'll probably be a court case." "Will I have to testify?" "Possibly, if it goes to trial." "I don't want to. The other kids, they'll think I'm weak, that I couldn't handle coaching." "Kyle," I set down my fork, looked at him directly. "What happened tonight wasn't coaching. It was assault. You did nothing wrong. You were the victim of a crime." But Coach Hutchinson said, "I know what he said. I know what he's been saying for 12 years. Telling kids they're soft, that they need to toughen up, that real men handle abuse without complaining. But here's what he didn't tell you. Assault is illegal regardless of who commits it or why. Coach, teacher, parent, stranger, doesn't matter. Grabbing someone by the head and throwing them to the ground is assault." Sarah reached across the table, squeezed Kyle's hand. "Your grandfather knows what he's talking about, sweetie." Kyle looked at me, curious for the first time. "What did you do, Grandpa, before you retired?" The question I'd been waiting for. I'd never hidden my career from Sarah, but she'd been young when I was active. Had only vague memories of Dad working late, traveling for cases, missing some school events. Kyle knew even less. "I was with the FBI, Violent Crimes Division, 28 years. His eyes widened. "Like catching murderers?" "Sometimes. Also kidnappers, armed robbers, assault cases. Domestic violence escalated to federal jurisdiction. I investigated violent crimes, built cases, testified in court." "You never mentioned that. Didn't seem relevant. I retired 5 years ago. Moved down here to be closer to you and your mom. Started consulting on private security, trying to enjoy the quiet life. But you knew exactly what to do tonight. The recording, the call, everything." I smiled slightly. "Old habits. When you spend nearly 3 decades documenting crimes, it becomes second nature. Evidence first. Always evidence first." Sarah was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Dad, all these years, you never talked about work. I knew you were FBI, but you never, I don't know, you never seemed like the tough guy cop type." "I'm not. I was an investigator, not a field agent. I built cases. I analyzed evidence. I testified. The tough guy stuff, that's television. Real investigation is methodical, patient, detailed." "Coach Hutchinson didn't know who you were," Kyle said quietly. "He thought you were just some grandfather. That was his mistake." The next morning, we gave our statements at the police station. Marcus led the interview, asking detailed questions, walking Kyle through every interaction with Coach Hutchinson over the past 3 months. A pattern emerged. Grabbing face masks, pushing players, verbal abuse that crossed from intense coaching to degradation. "How many times did he grab your helmet?" Marcus asked. Kyle thought, "This season, maybe 10 times. Last season too, but less. He only does it to certain players." "Which players?" "The ones who don't have parents at practice, or whose parents don't complain." Marcus wrote that down. "Did anyone ever complain?" "Some parents tried. Coach would meet with them, be really nice, apologize, say he'd work on it. Then he'd punish that kid at the next practice, make them run extra laps, bench them for games. Eventually people stopped complaining." After the statement, Marcus pulled me aside. "Tom, I'm going to level with you. This case is solid, but it's going to get complicated." "How complicated?" "School board is already circling wagons. Hutchinson's got boosters calling in favors, parents signing letters of support, former players writing testimonials about how he changed their lives. And his wife's position at the DA's office. Even if she's in civil division, that creates optics issues. Jennifer Chen's handling it." "I know. She's assigned it to someone clean, someone with no connections to the Hutchinsons." "But Tom, this is going to be a fight." "I expected that. Men like Hutchinson don't accept accountability easily. They're used to power, used to intimidation working. There's something else. We pulled complaints filed against him. 7 formal complaints over 12 years, all dismissed as coaching intensity or misunderstandings. 2 involved physical contact similar to what happened with Kyle. 7 complaints and nothing happened? School administration investigated each one internally. Found no wrongdoing. Parents were told their kids needed tougher attitudes. Let me guess. Those kids quit the team shortly after. Marcus nodded. 4 of them quit football entirely. 2 transferred schools. 1 graduated. We're trying to contact those families now, see if they'll testify about a pattern of behavior. They won't, I said. They'll be scared. Hutchinson's had 12 years to build this fortress around himself. Convinced everyone he's untouchable, that speaking up means social suicide for their kids. Maybe. But your video changes things. It's one thing to have competing stories. It's another to have clear documentation. That evening, my phone rang. Unknown number, I answered. Mr. Brennan, this is Richard Castellano. I'm attorney for Brad Hutchinson. His voice was smooth, confident, the tone of someone used to people backing down when he applied pressure. I see. Mr. Brennan, I'll get straight to the point. My client made an error in judgment. He let his passion for coaching override his better sense for one moment. He's deeply apologetic and willing to offer a substantial settlement to your grandson in exchange for dropping the criminal complaint. I don't control the criminal complaint. The state of Texas does. Once assault is reported, it's the district attorney's decision whether to prosecute. Right. But your testimony is crucial. Without your cooperation, the case becomes much weaker. Mr. Castellano, I witnessed a crime. I reported it. I'll testify truthfully about what I saw. That's my obligation as a citizen. I understand principles, Mr. Brennan. I do. But let's be practical. A trial would be traumatic for your grandson. He'd be questioned, cross-examined, forced to relive the incident. Is that really in his best interest? My grandson telling the truth about being assaulted is absolutely in his best interest. Holding adults accountable for violence against children is in everyone's best interest. You're making this harder than it needs to be. My client is willing to resign from coaching, pay $50,000 to Kyle, and commit to anger management counseling. All off the record. No admission of guilt. Everyone moves on. Your client committed assault. That's not something you move on from. That's something you face consequences for. Castellano's voice hardened slightly. Mr. Brennan, you should know my client has significant community support. Parents, former players, boosters, school board members. If this goes to trial, character witnesses will testify that Brad Hutchinson has positively impacted hundreds of young lives. Your grandson will be portrayed as soft, unable to handle competitive sports. Is that really what you want? I'm not concerned with your client's PR strategy. I'm concerned with the fact that he violently assaulted a child. Think carefully about this. Trials can go unexpected directions. Juries can be unpredictable. A settlement guarantees compensation and resolution. A trial guarantees nothing except stress and publicity. Mr. Castellano, I spent 28 years with the FBI building cases against violent criminals. I know how trials work. I know how defense attorneys operate. And I know that men who use their position to abuse children need to be held accountable, not bought off. Silence on the other end. Then the FBI? Violent Crimes Division. I retired 5 years ago, but I've testified in over 200 cases. I know how to document evidence. I know how to handle cross-examination. I know exactly what your strategy will be, and I'm prepared for all of it. I see. Another pause. Mr. Brennan, perhaps we started off on the wrong foot. No, Mr. Castellano. Your client started off on the wrong foot when he assaulted my grandson. This conversation is over. Any future communication should go through the district attorney's office. I hung up. Sarah had been listening from the kitchen. $50,000, Dad. That's a lot of money. Kyle's college fund. It's also blood money. Accepting it means letting Hutchinson walk away, which means he'll do this to another kid next season, and another one the season after. But what if the trial doesn't go our way? Then we tried. But Sarah, I've seen the evidence. I've built weaker cases that resulted in convictions. This is solid. You're really willing to go through a whole trial? I'm really willing to see justice done. 2 weeks passed. The school board held an emergency meeting. Hutchinson was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Parents divided into camps. Some demanded he be fired immediately. Others organized a petition supporting him, collecting 500 signatures. A Facebook group formed, Support Coach Hutchinson. Stop Cancel Culture. They posted testimonials from former players about how Hutchinson had taught them discipline, toughness, resilience, how he'd written recommendation letters for college, attended their weddings, been a father figure. Not one mentioned that grabbing kids by the helmet and throwing them to the ground wasn't discipline. It was assault. Kyle returned to school. Some kids avoided him, others whispered in hallways. The quarterback, a senior named Jake, who'd been Hutchinson's star player for 3 years, cornered Kyle at lunch. "You're weak, Mitchell. Coach was right about you. You couldn't handle real coaching, so you got your grandfather to call the cops. You're pathetic." Sarah got a call from the principal that afternoon. They were moving Kyle to a different lunch period to reduce tensions. "To protect my son from harassment?" Sarah asked. "To maintain a positive learning environment for all students. So my son gets punished because other students are harassing him for reporting assault? Nobody's being punished, Miss Mitchell. We're simply managing the situation." Sarah told me about it that evening. Her voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "They're protecting Hutchinson's supporters. They're making Kyle feel like he did something wrong. They're scared," I said. "Scared of lawsuits, scared of losing boosters, scared of admitting they enabled 12 years of abuse. What do? We stay the course. We document everything. Every harassing message, every incident, every administrative decision that favors Hutchinson. It all becomes part of the pattern." Detective Walsh called 3 days later. "Tom, we've contacted 6 of the 7 families who filed previous complaints. 4 agreed to give statements. All described similar physical contact. Grabbing, pushing, intimidation. That's excellent for establishing pattern. There's more. We pulled medical records with parental permission. 2 kids visited doctors after incidents with Hutchinson. 1 had bruising. Another had whiplash. Neither parent connected it to coaching at the time because Hutchinson told them their kids had been hurt during regular play. So he's been doing this for years, sending kids to doctors and convincing parents it was normal football injuries. Exactly. The district attorney is building a strong case. Preliminary hearing is set for next month. The preliminary hearing came on a gray Tuesday in November, Judge Sarah Martinez presiding. I sat in the gallery with Sarah and Kyle. Hutchinson sat at the defense table with Castellano, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, looking confident. The prosecutor was young, maybe 35, but sharp. Amanda Wright, handling the case because Jennifer Chen had recused herself given Lisa Hutchinson's employment in the DA's office. Wright presented the video first. Even on the courtroom screen, the violence was clear. Hutchinson grabbing the helmet, Kyle's head snapping forward, the throw to the ground, the gasping struggle to breathe. 2 jurors in the preliminary panel looked ill. Wright called Kyle to testify. He was nervous, voice shaking at first, but he told the truth. Described the incident, the pattern of behavior, the fear he'd felt. Castellano's cross-examination tried to paint it as misunderstanding. "You're aware Coach Hutchinson has decades of experience? That perhaps his methods seem harsh to someone unfamiliar with competitive athletics?" Kyle's answer was quiet but firm. "I've played football for 4 years. I know the difference between tough coaching and assault." After Kyle, Wright called me. I walked through my credentials first. 28 years FBI, Violent Crimes Division, specialized in assault cases, testified in over 200 trials. Castellano looked less confident. "Mr. Brennan," Wright asked, "in your professional opinion, did what you witnessed constitute assault?" "Without question." The defendant grabbed the victim by the head, using the helmet, forcibly threw him to the ground, with enough violence to cause injury and respiratory distress. That meets every element of assault under Texas law. On cross-examination, Castellano tried a different angle. Mr. Brennan, isn't it true you have a personal interest in this case, that your judgment might be clouded by family connection? My judgment is based on 28 years of professional experience. Family connection doesn't change the fact that I witnessed assault. If I'd seen that same action in any other context, stranger to stranger, I would have responded identically. But you can't deny you're emotionally invested. I'm invested in justice, Mr. Castellano. That's what I spent my career pursuing. My grandson being the victim doesn't change the crime. It just means I was present to document it properly. Judge Martinez reviewed the evidence, testimony, medical records, and statements from other families. Her ruling took less than 5 minutes. Based on the evidence presented, I find probable cause to believe the defendant, Brad Hutchinson, committed assault under Texas Penal Code 22.01. This case will proceed to trial. Trial date set for January 15th. Defendant's bond is set at $50,000 with conditions including no contact with the victim or his family and suspension from all coaching activities. Hutchinson's face went red. Castellano whispered urgently in his ear. In the gallery, Sarah squeezed my hand. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Local news had picked up the story. FBI agent's grandson, assaulted by coach, made for compelling headlines. Mr. Brennan, can you comment on the case? I stepped in front of the cameras. My grandson was assaulted. I reported it. The legal system is now doing its job. That's all. Are you satisfied with today's outcome? I'm satisfied that justice is proceeding as it should. A reporter from the Austin American-Statesman pushed forward. Mr. Brennan, sources say you have extensive experience with violent crime investigation. Did that experience help in this case? Old habits and training are useful in any situation requiring documentation and proper reporting. I simply did what any responsible citizen should do when witnessing a crime. That evening, Castellano called again. Mr. Brennan, we need to talk settlement. I thought I made my position clear. My client's willing to go higher. $75,000, plus he'll voluntarily surrender his teaching license. No more coaching, no more contact with students. And no criminal conviction on his record? That would be part of the agreement, yes? Mr. Castellano, your client assaulted a child, multiple children, based on evidence that's emerging. A settlement lets him escape accountability. I'm not interested. You're making a mistake. A trial will be brutal. Every aspect of your grandson's life will be examined. His grades, his athletic performance, his social media. Will present testimony that he's been struggling in school, that he's had disciplinary issues. Kyle's grades are excellent, and he's never had a disciplinary issue. But please, continue threatening to fabricate character attacks. It's exactly the kind of defense I'd expect from someone representing a guilty client. Listen, Brennan, I've won cases you wouldn't believe. I've gotten clients acquitted on much stronger evidence than this. You're gambling with your grandson's reputation, with your family's peace of mind. No, Mr. Castellano, I'm ensuring that a man who's been abusing children for 12 years finally faces consequences. See you in court. December brought cold rain to Austin and escalating harassment for Kyle. Someone spray-painted snitch on his locker. Anonymous social media accounts posted memes mocking him. Parents of other players organized a fundraiser for Hutchinson's legal defense, raising $40,000 in 2 weeks. The school board held a vote on Hutchinson's employment. Despite the pending criminal charges, despite the evidence, despite everything, they voted 5-3 to keep him on paid administrative leave rather than terminate him. After the vote, one board member who'd voted to keep him spoke to reporters. We need to remember that Coach Hutchinson has given this community over a decade of service. One incident shouldn't erase all the good he's done. Sarah watched the news, furious. One incident? They found evidence of multiple assaults. They don't want to see it, I said. Acknowledging it means admitting they failed to protect kids for 12 years. It means liability, lawsuits, the destruction of Hutchinson's legacy. It's easier to minimize, to call it one moment of poor judgment. How do you handle this, Dad? The injustice, the way people twist truth to protect power? You focus on the evidence. You trust the process. and you accept that justice is slow but ultimately arrives. Detective Walsh called the week before Christmas. "Tom, wanted to give you a heads up. We found more victims. 3 more families came forward after the preliminary hearing. Similar stories: physical contact, intimidation, kids too scared to report. Will they testify?" 2 of them, yes. 1 family's still deciding. But Tom, here's the thing. We dug into Hutchinson's history before Madison High. He coached at 2 other schools. Both positions ended after parent complaints about physical contact with players. Let me guess. No formal charges, no investigations, just quiet resignations and moves to new districts. Exactly. Pattern of behavior going back 20 years. Always the same. Intense coaching crosses into abuse, complaints get made, administration protects him, he moves on. Why? Winning. He has a track record of producing championship teams, kids who go to college programs. Schools prioritize that over player safety, until someone like you documents it properly and refuses to back down. Christmas came and went quietly. Kyle spent it subdued, the weight of everything pressing on him. On Christmas evening, we sat on my back porch, watching winter stars. "Grandpa," he said quietly, "was it worth it? Reporting Coach Hutchinson?" "What do you mean?" "Everything that's happened. The harassment, the stress, the way everyone looks at me now. Maybe it would have been easier to just transfer schools. Forget it happened." "Kyle," I set down my coffee, looked at him. "Easier for who? For me? For Mom? For you even?" "Maybe. But what about the next kid? The one who would have been Hutchinson's target after you left? What about the pattern that would have continued for another decade?" He was quiet. Sometimes doing the right thing is the hardest thing. But if everyone chooses easy over right, then men like Hutchinson keep hurting people. You standing up, being willing to testify, that takes courage. Real courage, not the fake version Hutchinson sold, where you just absorb abuse without complaining. I'm scared of the trial. That's normal. I've testified hundreds of times, and there's always nervousness. But Kyle, you're not alone in this. I'll be there. Your mom will be there. And the truth is on our side. The trial began January 15th on a cold morning with threatening clouds. Judge Martinez's courtroom was packed. Reporters, parents, former players, community members who'd followed every development. Hutchinson sat at the defense table, looking smaller somehow, diminished. Castellano beside him, confident mask in place. Amanda Wright opened with systematic precision. This is a simple case. The defendant, in his position of authority over children, committed assault. We have video evidence. We have medical evidence. We have testimony from the victim and from other families who experienced similar violence. The law is clear. Assault is assault, regardless of who commits it. Castellano's opening painted Hutchinson as a dedicated coach whose only crime was caring too much. He pushed kids because he believed in them. He demanded excellence because he knew they could achieve it. One moment of excessive discipline doesn't erase 12 years of positively impacting young lives. The first day was procedural. Jury selection took hours. Wright wanted jurors who could separate emotional attachment to high school football from the legal reality of assault. Castellano wanted parents, former athletes, people who understood tough coaching. By end of day 1, we had our jury. 7 women, 5 men, mix of ages and backgrounds. 3 had kids in high school. 1 was a former college athlete. Day 2, Wright presented the video, played it 3 times from different angles. The courtroom was silent except for the audio. Hutchinson's voice yelling, Kyle's gasping, the thud of impact. 2 jurors looked away during the 3rd viewing. Kyle testified on day 3. Wright walked him through everything. The pattern of behavior, the escalating intensity, the final assault. Kyle's voice was steady. He'd practiced, prepared, found his courage. On cross-examination, Castellano went exactly where he'd threatened. Isn't it true you've had conflicts with coaches before? No. Isn't it true you considered quitting the team last year? I thought about it because of Coach Hutchinson's behavior. But I love football. I didn't want to quit. Isn't it true your grandfather has influence over you? That perhaps he encouraged you to file charges. My grandfather protected me. That's different from influencing me. Coach Hutchinson assaulted me. That's why charges were filed. The medical examiner testified on day 4. Bruising consistent with forceful contact. Soft tissue damage to the neck. Evidence of respiratory distress. Former parents testified. Quiet, nervous voices describing similar incidents with their own kids. Hutchinson's pattern of grabbing, pushing, intimidating, all dismissed as coaching at the time. I testified on day 5. Wright walked me through my credentials, my experience, my observations that night. Mr. Brennan, in your professional opinion based on 28 years investigating violent crimes, was what you witnessed assault? Yes. Unequivocally. Castellano's cross-examination was aggressive. Mr. Brennan, you spent your career building cases against criminals. Isn't it possible you see crimes where none exist because that's how you're trained to think? I'm trained to recognize violence and document it properly. What I witnessed met every legal definition of assault. But you're also emotionally invested because the victim is your grandson. My professional assessment isn't compromised by family connection. If anything, my experience made me better equipped to document the evidence properly. You could have handled this privately, family to family, without involving the legal system. No, Mr. Castellano. Assault isn't a private family matter. It's a crime. When adults assault children, reporting it to authorities is exactly the appropriate response. The defense case lasted 2 days. Character witnesses testified about Hutchinson's positive impact. Former players described how he'd changed their lives, taught them discipline, helped them succeed. Not one mentioned that grabbing kids by the helmet and throwing them to the ground wasn't necessary for any of that. Closing arguments came on day 7. Wright was precise. The evidence is overwhelming. Video documentation, medical evidence, multiple victims. The defendant's own admission that he grabbed the victim and forced him to the ground. This is assault. The jury's duty is to hold him accountable. Castellano made his final appeal to emotion. Coach Hutchinson dedicated his life to young people. One mistake doesn't define him. Convicting him destroys not just his career but all the future good he could do. The jury deliberated 6 hours. We waited in a conference room. Sarah paced. Kyle sat quietly. I reviewed my notes, habit more than necessity. When the bailiff called us back, the courtroom felt electric. Everyone standing as the jury filed in. Hutchinson's hands were shaking. Judge Martinez addressed the foreperson. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. On the charge of assault, how do you find? We find the defendant guilty. Hutchinson's face went white. Castellano's jaw tightened. In the gallery, some people gasped. Others nodded grimly. Sarah grabbed my hand. Kyle exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for 7 days. Judge Martinez scheduled sentencing for 3 weeks later. Hutchinson was led away by bailiffs, no longer confident, no longer untouchable. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Mr. Brennan, how do you feel about the verdict? I feel that justice was served. A man who abused his authority and assaulted children was held accountable. That's how the system should work. What message does this send to other coaches? That authority doesn't exempt anyone from the law. That violence against children, regardless of context or excuse, is unacceptable. Sentencing came in early February. Judge Martinez reviewed the pre-sentence investigation, victim impact statements, letters from both supporters and critics. Mr. Hutchinson, she said, you held a position of enormous trust and authority. You used that position to physically abuse children, multiple children over many years. The harm you've caused is substantial and long-lasting. Sentence is as follows. 1 year, county jail. 3 years, supervised probation. Completion of anger management program. Permanent surrender of teaching license. $5,000, restitution to each documented victim, and prohibition from any position involving supervision of minors. She paused. Mr. Hutchinson, I hope you use this time to reflect on the damage you've caused and the lives you've impacted. Bailiffs led him away. He didn't look back. That evening, Kyle and Sarah came over for dinner. We sat on my back porch despite the February chill, bundled in jackets, watching the sunset. It's really over, Kyle said. He's actually being punished. Yes. Some of the parents are still defending him on social media, saying the trial was unfair, that you had too much influence. They'll say that. Some people can't accept that their hero was abusing kids. It challenges too much of how they understand the world. Do you think he'll change? I don't know. Some people learn from consequences. Others just get bitter. But that's not our concern anymore. We did what we needed to do. The rest is up to him. Sarah looked at me. Dad, I never really understood what you did for all those years. FBI, violent crimes. It all seemed abstract. But watching you through this, seeing how you documented everything, how you stayed calm, how you knew exactly what would happen at each step, I finally get it. You spent your career protecting people. I spent my career seeking justice. Sometimes that meant protecting people. Sometimes it meant holding people accountable, usually both. Kyle was quiet for a moment. Then, Grandpa, thank you for believing me, for taking it seriously, for not telling me to just handle it or be tougher. Kyle, I learned a long time ago that real strength isn't absorbing abuse silently. Real strength is standing up and saying this is wrong, even when it's hard, even when people pressure you to stay quiet. You showed that strength. I just helped document it. The school board held another vote 3 weeks after sentencing. This time, with criminal conviction established, they voted unanimously to terminate Hutchinson's employment. Too little, too late, Sarah said when she heard. But still a victory, I replied. And it sends a message that even protected people eventually face consequences. Spring came to Austin. Kyle returned to football. Different team, different school, fresh start. The new coach was professional, demanding but respectful, pushing for excellence without crossing into abuse. Detective Walsh and I met for coffee one afternoon in late March. Tom wanted to update you. 3 more victims came forward after the conviction. Their families are filing civil suits. The school district's looking at major liability. Good. Maybe financial consequences will motivate better oversight next time. You did more than win one case. You changed how the whole district looks at coaching complaints. There's a new system now. Independent review, mandatory reporting, limits on physical contact. That's progress. You know what amazes me? Marcus leaned back, coffee in hand. You spent almost 3 decades with violent crimes, dangerous cases, violent criminals, and you end your involvement in investigations by taking down a high school coach who was abusing kids. Seems almost anticlimactic. I smiled. Marcus, the most important cases aren't always the biggest ones. Sometimes they're the ones involving your own family, your own community. The difference between one kid being protected or enduring more abuse. This case mattered as much as any I worked. Fair point. Still, Hutchinson's attorney must have been shocked when he realized who he was dealing with. Underestimation has its advantages. People reveal themselves when they think you're harmless. 6 months after the trial, I received a letter. No return address, but postmarked from Austin. I opened it carefully. The handwriting was shaky, uncertain. Mr. Brennan, I know I have no right to write this. I know my actions caused tremendous harm, but I wanted you to know that I've been thinking about what happened, what I did, for months now. In jail, I had time to reflect, time to face what I'd become. I told myself for years that I was tough because I cared, that I pushed kids because I believed in them. But watching that video during the trial, seeing it from outside my own perspective, I finally understood. I wasn't tough. I was violent. I wasn't pushing kids to succeed. I was abusing my authority. I'm sorry. That doesn't fix anything. It doesn't undo the harm. But I am genuinely sorry. To your grandson, to every kid I hurt, to their families. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. I just wanted to acknowledge the truth. You were right. I was wrong. And I'm grateful someone finally stopped me before I hurt more kids. Brad Hutchinson. I showed the letter to Kyle. He read it twice, then set it down carefully. Do you believe him? He asked. I think he's beginning to understand. Whether that becomes genuine change or just regret at being caught, time will tell. But accountability often starts with acknowledgement. Do you forgive him? I wasn't the one he assaulted. That's your decision to make, not mine. I'm not ready yet. Maybe someday. But not yet. That's valid. Forgiveness isn't required. It's a gift you give when and if you're ready, not something anyone can demand. That evening, I sat on my back porch watching the sunset. The same view I'd had for 5 years of retirement. The same quiet neighborhood, the same comfortable routine, but different now, somehow. Because I'd been reminded that retirement from the FBI didn't mean retirement from responsibility. That seeing injustice and doing nothing wasn't an option. That old skills, old training, old habits remained useful. My phone buzzed. Text from Sarah. Dad, Kyle made first-string linebacker for his new team. Coach said his discipline and focus are exceptional. Thank you for everything. I typed back. He did the hard work. I just helped him stand up. The sunset painted the sky orange and pink. Somewhere across Austin, Brad Hutchinson was completing his sentence, facing whatever came next. Somewhere, kids were playing football with coaches who understood the difference between demanding excellence and committing abuse. And here, in this quiet house in North Austin, I sat with the knowledge that justice, though slow and difficult and complicated, still worked when people refused to look away. 28 years with the FBI had taught me to investigate crimes, document evidence, and build cases. But it had also taught me something simpler, that standing up for what's right, especially when it's hard, especially when it's personal, matters more than comfort or convenience. Kyle's courage to speak up, to testify, to withstand harassment, that mattered. Sarah's support, even when scared, that mattered. And my willingness to use old skills one more time to be the grandfather my grandson needed in that moment, that mattered most of all. The sky darkened, stars emerged. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new routines, new moments. But tonight, there was peace. And that, after everything, was enough. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. To watch another story, click the video on your screen. Thank you for listening.